For many Americans, the word yoga conjures up images of Lululemon-clad upper-middle-class suburban moms stretching and posing together in a studio for about an hour before driving their minivans to pick up their kids from middle school. Indeed, to many, yoga simply refers to an expensive and pricey exercise class, where the only connection to its Indian ancestry might be the greetings of Namaste and the occasional recitation and often mispronunciation of the sacred mantra Om. It should come as no surprise then that this narrow and heavily commercialized Western appropriation of yoga is a far cry from its ancient origins. In fact, even the word yoga means something very different today in America than it did in its original incarnation. Yoga is an extremely old word, and it first appears in writings around the 15th century BCE in South Asia's oldest literary work, the Rig Veda Samhita. However, in this context, yoga means to yoke, as in yoking an animal to a plow or a chariot. The word was also used to describe war itself, but in addition, the act to which priests received inspiration by yoking themselves to the cosmos.
Eventually, the warlike Vedic culture would shift to a more mystical Brahmanic culture. It was during this time that yoga, as a system of techniques, rather than as just an abstract word, would begin to develop. Around the 6th and 5th centuries BCE, Buddhist and Jain renouncers began to develop an aesthetic system of techniques to pray and to achieve personal enlightenment. They refer to these techniques as yoga. These outsider religious groups began to influence Brahmanical culture, who began to adopt these techniques and integrate them into its own spiritual system. While some of these techniques emphasized breathing and posture, the vast majority were meditation and devotional exercises, still very different from the yoga prevalent today. These techniques were later detailed in the Upanishads and were included in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita as a way to achieve moksha, or freedom from the cycle of rebirth. The Yoga Sutras were later documents, and they detailed yoga even more. This new definition of yoga, circa the 1st and 2nd centuries CE, emphasized 8 different, yet equally important components of proper yoga practice. These included yama, which was a system of aesthetic restraints, including celibacy, nonviolence, truth-telling, restraint from stealing, and restraint from attachment. Niyama, ritual observances. Asana, postures. Pranayama, breath control exercises. Pratyahara, sense withdrawal exercises. Dharana, spatial meditation. Dhyana, temporal meditation. And samadhi, concentration. While asana most resembles modern yoga, in this context it simply means any comfortable posture for the sake of meditation.
Postures would be more emphasized in the next significant development of yoga history. The Hindu Tantras were a collection of esoteric, mystical works dating from around the 10th and 11th centuries CE. These texts indicated that through ritual action, it is possible to fleetingly access the divine. One of these rituals involved unlocking the flow of energy, or chakra, within the body. These rituals became what is known as Tantric Yoga, or today Hatha Yoga, and is the yoga system that was later brought to the West. Like the yoga systems before it, Hatha Yoga was not simply a Hindu invention, and its development was aided by and explored in and augmented by Buddhist and Jain Tantric systems as well. Yoga was first brought to American elites in the late 18th century thanks to the efforts of the American Theosophical Society and an Indian mystic named Swami Vivekananda. The Theosophical Society was a collection of upper-class intellectuals interested in religious traditions outside of the Protestant Christianity that was overwhelmingly prevalent in the United States at that time. Of particular interest was the seemingly exotic and mystical practices of India, first popularized in the West by Vivekananda himself. Vivekananda first came to America to participate in the Parliament of the World Religions in 1893, and his great charisma won him many followers. He himself was a student of what he called classical yoga, or Raja Yoga, a form of yoga based on the techniques detailed in the Yoga Sutras, and wrote extensively on the subject. His works provided many Americans with their first introduction to yoga, and the basis for which we see yoga studios around America today.
Despite Vivekananda's popularity, yoga was still treated with suspicion during the first half of the 20th century. Gradually, Hatha yoga was introduced to the States as well. However, this system of bodily contortions and postures was viewed as degenerate and indecent. While still somewhat looked down upon, the more meditational Raja Yoga became more socially acceptable and became the more dominant form of yoga in the States, though it still did not see widespread practice. Yoga would not see mainstream breakthrough until the countercultural movements of the 1960s. Prominent figures such as the Beatles adopted Indian teachers, and practices like meditation and yoga became popular due to their exoticness and their stark contrast with the typical 1950s American identity. Capitalizing on this new fad, mystics like B.H.K. Iyengar and Muktananda began to teach Americans in the techniques they had learned from their teachers, for a price. American students like John Friend learned from these teachers and went on to further commercialize and appropriate these sacred techniques to sell to other Americans. Today, yoga as a form of exercise is widespread, though you can find yoga studios that emphasize spiritual enlightenment. However, on the whole, modern yoga has de-emphasized its Indian mystical tradition and focused more on exercise and personal wellness.
As you can see, yoga is way more complex than commonly portrayed in the American mainstream. It has ancient origins and is much more than just a sequence of postures. It is a whole methodology of how to live and how to embrace a fuller and more complete life. Yoga is an amazing practice, and after this project, we both believe and encourage everybody to go out and try some for yourself and know about the ancient history that goes along with it.